This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. That is Ira Winderman. How are you doing, my friend? You feeling good?
I'm doing good. Get a nice chance for a little bit of an exhale this week, but I know all Heat eyes will be focused on the play-in Tuesday when the Nets play the Cavaliers, Thursday when the Hawks play, rather Wednesday when the Hawks play the Hornets, and then even Friday to see who they play. So a chance to sort of exhale about your own Heat concerns, but clearly a focus on what comes next for Sunday's playoff opener at FTX Arena.
You know, one of the things before we get to the Heat playoff team, clearly Oladipo sent some messages here, and not just to the Heat, but I think he's also going to be sending it now to the rest of the NBA after that performance last night. And one of the things I talked about before you came on in this opening half hour was that I think the Heat now got themselves a junkyard dog that is kind of like on the chain and hungry and dying for that brontosaurus burger that you're throwing at them. And that brontosaurus burger is Spoelstra going, pointing at you from the bench and come off the bench. I think the Heat didn't only just get Oladipo back, but I think they got a guy back with a little bit of an edge because of what recently happened when they said, yeah, we watched enough. We need to move on. And just that moment, I think, lit a fire in that young man.
I'm going to temper you a little, Big O. First of all, keep in mind, his 40 points last night came against second-team players against the second-worst team in the NBA.
He's supposed to do that. He did what he was supposed to do.
And number two, we saw a bunch of matter of fact, it's interesting. Victor Oladipo scored 40 points yesterday and had the fifth highest scoring game of the day. Obi Toppin got 41 points. Jalen Green got 41 points. Malik Monk got 41 points. So closing day is a little bit different when not a lot is at stake. The other part of it is this. We know the Heat's primary perimeter wing players in the playoffs to succeed are Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, and Tyler Hero. I'm not so sure if one of them has a misstep that Victor Oladipo will be enough to step in for him. Victor Oladipo was also shown as a high usage player. He could do something for you. He's not going to be high usage with the rotation the Heat have. So if you assume they're going to start the starting lineup of Adebayo and Tucker if he's healthy, and Max Strus and Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry as they should. They won 6 straight games before losing the final game of the regular season. Pretty much we know that it looks like Dedmon and Hero are going to be the first two off the bench, a big and a wing. So at best, Victor Oladipo has a chance to be eighth man, and that's if you're not playing Caleb Martin, if you're not playing Gabe Vincent, if you're not playing Duncan Robinson. And Big O, you can tell me that even right now, Victor Oladipo is better than all three of those last three I mentioned, of Martin, of Robinson, and of Vincent, but it's about filling a role. You don't play your 7, 8 best players. You play the players who work best together, and you and I go back to that 2021 playoff, rather the 2001 playoffs, when Alonzo Mourning, who was one of the Heat's best players by far, comes back from his kidney illness. They changed the approach with Anthony Mason and Brian Grant, and they're swept out of the playoffs in the first round by Charlotte. It'll be dangerous, I think, to move back to Vic as rotation player because the Heat were a really bad team.
No, but you're misunderstanding me. I'm not saying that he must be used as a rotation player. What I'm saying is what you didn't get on the first go round, which was very up and downish, and then Riley and then Spo said, yeah, Markieff and Vic, we've seen enough. We need to get back to what we were doing because it was working.
Right.
That lit a fire under him. That now what I'm saying is whenever you do call upon him, injury, foul trouble, struggles, whatever's going on in front of him, when you call on him, I just think you're going to get a dependable player now. That's all I'm saying. I'm seeing a motivated player. I'm seeing a guy that kind of just finally said, I hate to use the old, an old line, but I got to go back to risky business. Sometimes you just have to say, what the F? And it just seems to me, the guy I've watched in the last couple of games said, what the F? There's no more, hesitation. There's no more worries about the injury. I saw 36 minutes last night. That's a lot of minutes for the
Sure.
guy, a guy that you were worried about. Can you extend his minutes? Is he just limited because of the injuries, this and that? All I'm saying is, as you watch him play, it just seems like there's a little different Depot than the one you got in the first go around here, just a month and a half ago.
And I agree with that. And I would not
That's
be
all I'm saying.
shocked if
That's all
we
I'm saying.
rotate through and instead of Gabe Vincent, it's Victor Oladipo instead. Because maybe in the big picture, Eric Spoelstra might say, hey, it's one thing to get through this first round. But if I'm going to get through the Sixers or Raptors in the next round, and I'm going to get through the Bucks or the Celtics in the next round, I might need a little bit of elevation in the 7-game series. And Victor Oladipo's upside is higher than Gabe Vincent's upside. No offense to Gabe, but that's just the truth. It also could come down to matchups, Big O. Say, for example, the Heat play the Cavaliers. Cavaliers are big if Jared Allen comes back from his finger injury. But when Jared Allen goes back or one of their big goes out, Kevin Love comes in and plays with Evan Mobley. Both players who wander to the perimeter. Do you want Dwayne Dedmon in that situation? Out of the paint, he's not the same player.
No.
Maybe you're playing Caleb Martin in those minutes, and then maybe an Oladipo gets to play in some of the Dedmon-Martin minutes instead. So it will be matchup based. There's nothing bad that came out of what Victor Oladipo did yesterday. Don't get me wrong.
That's my point. That what I feel is they've added another dependable player on the bench, because I think Depot realizes that whatever moments I get, no longer it's just for the Heat. I may not be here. I have to also showcase myself for everybody else. And I think that's what that 40-point performance was last night.
Absolutely.
It wasn't just for the Heat. It was for all the other teams to tell, hey, yo, I'm back. I feel good now. I'm past the injury and it's not in my head. And that these are the things that are really important to Depot. And I think the Heat are going to benefit from it. That's all I'm saying.
And to that point, you have a good point for this reason. At least for 2 years after this, we know that Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler basically are the Heat's backcourt, the primary wing rotation. Of course they are what they're paying them. We know that after Tyler Hero wins sixth-man award and gets his extension, he will be the third guy in that mix. So does Vic want to be the fourth guy in the mix here? Or does he want to go to a team, the Knicks, maybe a lesser team or something like that, where he can showcase himself a little bit more in a year or two and still get one more contract? Absolutely possible. He's not going to talk free agency now.
Wait a minute. Are they keeping Tom Thibodeau in New York?
I think Tibbs will stay there, yeah.
Oh, no, don't send deep. Why do you got to do that to the kid, bro?
Then he'll play 42 minutes a night.
With Thibodeau, man.
Then he'll play 42 minutes a night and get all the playing time he could want, so he can do that also.
Don't forget 42 minutes. And see, the problem that people don't realize about Jimmy Butler, because I had this conversation with Ethan, that he was, he hasn't played that many. If you measure the minutes, and I go to Ethan, there's something called practice. Okay. And a Tom Thibodeau practice or a Pat Riley practice is not the same as everybody else's practice.
And it's not the same as an Eric Spoelstra practice.
Don't measure it by just minutes played, because that's the thing they said. No, but if you look at Jimmy's minutes, no, I get it. They're comparable to everybody else. But did you look at what happened off the court in the background? Because that's how the Tibbs and the Rileys of the world get their reputations, because they work your ass off in those practices.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So if stranger things have happened, the Cavs are kind of a gritty team. I got to give them a lot of credit.
Sure.
The way they've played this year, it looks like it'll be the Nets at 7, but stranger things have happened, man.
Look, you never know, Big O. I'll say this. If you were to tell me, Ira, give me the playoff seedings, how you'd want them to come out. If I could wind up with anyone but Brooklyn in the first round, Charlotte, Atlanta, Cleveland, I'm fine. In the second round, to know you're not most likely, you're not going to, you can't get Boston, Milwaukee is perfect. I mean, you might have wanted Chicago, but they're going out in the first round. They've been terrible. So will the Sixers or Raptors be tough? Yes, but not as tough for the Heat as the Celtics or Bucks. So this thing is set up very nicely for the Heat. Almost through the NBA Finals. If the Heat would have won yesterday or the Warriors would have lost, there only would have been two teams, the Grizzlies and Suns, to have home court in the NBA Finals over the Heat. And who knows? You might see a Denver, a Utah, a Dallas, where the Heat does have home court in the Finals. They're well set up. Look, tomorrow's going to be pins and needles. But remember, the way the play-in works, tomorrow night, number 7 in the East, Brooklyn, hosts number 8 in the East, Cleveland, with the winner getting the number 7 seed. The assumption is Brooklyn at home, Kyrie and Durant. They get an extra 3 days off for an older team. If they win, they're going to get to number 7. But if Brooklyn's not good enough to beat Cleveland at home, then I'm not so sure on Friday they'd be good enough to beat Atlanta, let's say, and Trae Young at home. So that'll put it in the other direction, whether they just get bumped out of there. So the Heat have 2 chances for bad things to happen to Brooklyn unless Brooklyn takes care of their own business. And I got to tell you, you know me. I've been living in fear. I'm going to be honest. We've been on here in the Acura Pembroke Pines Reports twice a week, Monday and Fridays for months. My concern level with Brooklyn is down every time I see them. And it should be the opposite. Every time I see Kevin Durant and I see Kyrie Irving, I say that should be a great team. And then you see the team play. It was a 1-point game against a disinterested Pacers team yesterday.
You keep mixing a great duo with a great team. That's not that's the part that you keep, I guess, misrepresenting, in other words, because they're not a great team. They could be, that's a great duo. The Heat are a great team. Milwaukee's a great team. You know what I mean? Even Boston, if you get Williams back
into a great team,
yeah, they're a great team.
And a matter of fact, to take your argument further, Big O, and Philly right now, like the Nets, are a great duo. And we don't know what the Harden-Embiid chemistry is going to be like there. And
Thibault is not vaccinated, so he's
and
not
going to miss 2 games in Toronto. So we could very well wind up with Heat Toronto in the second round, and all the players having to test all over again and going through this Spoelstra and Adebayo BS.
Dude, I can't imagine what goes on behind the scenes with Thibault and his teammates. In that locker room, there must be mother effers being thrown around with him, because that must be pissing them off, because, you know, maybe people don't follow the Sixers, you know, or the league like you do and I do, but Thibault is a defensive
best perimeter defender for the Sixers.
My God, this is one of those guys you want on your team all the time. You know that you need that guy. He's a stopper, bro. And now he's not going to play in Toronto.
And if Fred VanVleet gets hot, Maxi's not going to stop him to the same level. Danny Green's not going to stop him to the same level. And so you are going to have concerns on that level. So I don't know who the Heat are going to play in the second round. If they get to the second round, I'm still trying to figure out who they're going to play in the first round.
Yeah, no. It looks like LeBron James. I know he's going to have a press conference today, which it disgusts me that he's going to have a press conference. You know, this reminds me of Jerry Jones talking after the coach and the players talk, and then he goes to just lay the law down and all that and undercut everybody's legs. But speaking of undercutting somebody's legs, the Woj bomb dropped. Vogel is out. It's just like there's this thing that's left behind of pieces of coaches laid all across the NBA where LeBron has been, man.
Well, and again, that's hardly a Woj bomb. We all saw that coming. We knew that was inevitable. The thing is, this should be a front office issue for the Lakers, for the team they put together in the first place, of all these older players who couldn't make it to the end. My God, they were relying at the end for playoff play-in time for Carmelo Anthony at 57 years old. So you reach a point, it just didn't make sense. This, to me, is far more on Rob Pelinka. But of course, like everyone else, like LeBron, like Pelinka, you put it off to the side and you blame someone else. You're talking about an NBA coach who was 2 years, actually less than 2 years removed from an NBA championship, getting kicked to the curb after a season like this. So that's not a great job. I mean, obviously, you want to coach the Lakers because of their lineage, and maybe 20 years from now, you have your own HBO series and Showtime. But in the moment, that's such a fractured roster and such a fractured team. Are the Lakers next year going to be better than the Suns, than the Warriors, than the Jazz, than the Nuggets? The West is so good that you're going to be fighting for play-in again. And you know what? If Zion Williamson comes back to the Pelicans, they're going to be a team on the coming on the rise also with the Grizzlies. So all of a sudden, that's not a peachy job, except for the fact that it is being called head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers and following great coaches like Phil Jackson and Pat Riley.
Yeah, to me, and you said it. It's a great line. It's a bad job right now. It's a terrible job right now. You go there, you're just inheriting a whole mess of problems. You know, and you know what's the screwy part about all of this? Westbrook was actually playing good basketball the last couple of weeks. He was actually playing somewhat efficient, which is unlike him at times. And this team is just a mess, whether it's AD's injuries, and then the problem with Westbrook and LeBron is that in order for them to be effective, LeBron was off the court too. That's what allowed Westbrook probably to play more his style.
Matter of fact, Big O, you just answered what we spoke about at the top of the show here with Victor Oladipo. Russell Westbrook was terrific when there was no Anthony Davis and no LeBron James. It is hard in the NBA to be a complimentary player. It is hard to be selfless and step back and saying, I'm not going to be number one. I'm not going to be number two. Westbrook always was that. He was
Bosh.
Yeah, he was at least.
We love you, bro. We love you.
And Mike
we
Miller
love you,
and
bro.
Shane
We love you.
and Ray
team.
Allen and the Heat. You
Team.
find those players. That's the
Team.
thing, Big O. You build a team by tiers and steps. When you don't do that, you wind up like the Sixers, you wind up like the Nets, and you wind up like the Lakers. You build a team. That Lakers job is like the Knicks job. You can say it's an historical franchise, but out in the West, you're working for Rob Pelinka and some of his mismanagement, and in the East, you're working for James Dolan and some of his mismanagement. It's hard to work around management.
I mean, that is just all right. Luka, not the right time to pick up an injury now.
No, they were playing for seeding. Injuries can happen. I understand it.
I know that they had to play. I'm just saying bad luck. I mean, that's not the guy you want to get banged up right before the damn playoffs, man. That's all I'm saying. It's like,
no, and you're talking about a single player team. Like we were talking about teams with big threes or big twos. The Mavericks are Luka. I mean, God bless their other players and what they've done. And they got Tim Hardaway still out injured. It's not like he's coming back to save the day. When you're a single player team, it's like Jokic in Denver. Now, especially that that Porter is out, and Jamal Murray is out, you're very limited. So it becomes a single player team. Again, you know what? When I look at the East is wide open. We love the Heat. The people who listen to this, on the Big O show, they love their Heat. I understand that. But we know the East is going to be a dogfight. But I think, Big O, you would agree. You would be surprised, wouldn't you, if anyone but the Suns comes out of the West? It's the Suns to lose, right? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Right. In the East, it's not. In the East, you could tell me three or four teams that could win it.
Yeah, two to three. I got Heat, Bucks,
Celtics.
Yeah.
Yes. The Celtics have been the best team in the East over the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And yet you get the puncher's shot chance. You get a team like Toronto that's so well coached and plays as a team with VanVleet. I mean, Pascal Siakam has had a great year this year. You just never know their puncher's chance. They're also, let alone Brooklyn. Look, you can't discount the Nets because Kevin Durant can give you 40 a night and Kyrie can give you 35 a night. And if you're getting 75 a night from them, then Seth Curry and Goran Dragic and Andre Drummond can fill in. You will need the best of those two. But again, they are a contender in the East. I think the West has distanced itself. There were the Suns and there were everyone else.
Okay. Now we'll wrap it up with this. And here's $1 million question. So reports say Ben Simmons could come back for the first round of the playoffs and all that stuff. Okay. Now I'm thinking Alonzo Mourning, which we just mentioned in this conversation. So the guy hasn't played all year. Plus he's never played with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to put in a ball dominant type of player who, by the way, from every account that we've ever seen, is afraid to shoot, afraid to score, afraid of his own shadow at the free throw line. Okay? So, and you don't even know if he's like Oladipo. You look at him now the last couple of weeks, you go, okay, he's over his injury. He's over the mental hurdle. He's aggressive. He's himself. We haven't gotten to that point with Ben Simmons. We don't know if he can stay healthy, and we don't know if his, scared little self actually is willing to, score the basketball when forced or go to the line, which he's terrified of. So you're going to break all of that in the playoffs. So it sounds to me, it's an asinine headline that Ben Simmons could return. I say you're stupid if you play Ben Simmons.
Right.
Maybe you just play him off the bench as your 8th or 9th guy to give him a couple minutes and let him get acclimated with guys. But there is no way that if Ben Simmons even is physically ready, I could say mentally, I'm ready to put him in the most important part of the season. This is not November.
Inevitably, the guys who've been out most of the season don't play in the playoffs. Even last week, the Nuggets said with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., sure, they make us better, but they've just missed too much time. They don't have the rhythm.
And that's Jamal Murray. And that's Jamal Murray. Okay.
Right. And they don't have their conditioning. And the bottom line is the Nets did make the Simmons trade with the long view. They took on his long contract. So because of that, they have to play the long view also. They can write off their season, his injuries and COVID and Kyrie's, anti-vax stance and all that, and say, but look at next season when we get everyone. I don't think the Nets are going to force the issue. Sure, they want to put that as a threat. It's like Eric Spoelstra, who's playing tonight. I'm not telling you. That's what teams do. But I would be very surprised to see Ben Simmons make any kind of meaningful contribution in the upcoming NBA playoffs.
And by the way, it's no threat. I'm just saying, it's not a threat until it's proven to be a threat.
I agree.
And Ben Simmons is not a threat at all to anyone whatsoever, okay?
Fully agree.
Crazy. All right, what are you working on the Sun Sentinel? So
posted a couple of stories at sunsentinel.com this morning. One breaking down each of the 4 teams in the play-in, who would be best for the Heat to play, what would be the burning questions in each series. Please check that out. Gives the Heat season series records against them. And also did a story at sunsentinel.com about how last night's final score of the Warriors impacted the Heat on 2 levels. The Warriors now have home court against the Heat in the potential finals. They finished tied with the same record. Golden State won the season series 2-0, including that game when they had no one playing and Jimmy got into his fight. That turned into a bigger game than we thought. And now a coin flip will be held in the NBA offices next Monday, a week from today, to determine which team of the Warriors and Heat selects number 27 and number 28. And I laid out those possibilities also at sunsentinel.com. So click on the stories, click on all the ads, click on a subscription. We appreciate it. And if you do all that, folks, we'll be back here for an hour on the Slomin's Home Security Inside the Paint, 9 o'clock on Wednesday. And I'll even come back for the Acura Pembroke Pines report on Friday also, as we finally set up getting closer to the playoffs.
Well, you want to do a Saturday show?
No, but I just give me any sponsors and I'll mention them. I'll sell for you, Big O. I'll sell.
There you go.
Thank you, buddy. Talk to you Wednesday.
And Ira Heat. Thank you, Ira. There you go. All right. That is Ira. Were you playing like a shell game or something? All right. That's Ira Winderman.